Live from the university.
All right.
Live from the university.
Good evening. I want to start this now so we can get through because it's going to take a little while to get through a PowerPoint presentation that I want to give you before we start this evening. The purpose of this meeting is pretty simplistic. Law enforcement agencies depend upon the communities they serve to be fully aware of what they do, number one, but also communicate back to us. If we don't hear from you, we basically are impaired upon how we perform our duties. The basic tenet of any investigation is that we talk to people. People are our first source of information. Probably not the best sometimes, but that's augmented, of course, by physical evidence and crime scene investigations. But the first step, of course, is talking to the person who reports the crime to us, then witnesses beyond that who may have witnessed the event. A lot of times, police departments have difficulties in conversing with the public they serve. There's many reasons for that, primarily of which is that it's difficult for the public to understand that when police officers, especially in small towns, rotating shifts are sometimes not accessible to the public they serve. I have officers that work through 3 different shifts, so on one day they may be working day shift, but you may not see them again on that shift until 3 weeks down the line. It's the nature of the beast in small towns. The difficulty sometimes is also made worse by the fact that police officers rotating those shifts get detached sometimes from the public. A guy working the midnight shift sees only one element of the public. We don't see everybody. So the clientele that we're dealing with at 3 o'clock in the morning is certainly different than the clientele we deal with at 9 o'clock in the morning. So sometimes that rotation of shifts and that changing, the officers get a little detached from the way they normally should be speaking to the public. Because of this, a lot of police departments around the nation hold these type of meetings to try to interact more positively with the community and to open up lines of communication so that we can better serve you and we can better perform our jobs. And that's the purpose of what we're doing here this evening. Before I even get into taking questions from you, I just want to basically give you an overview of what we do. Television is a wonderful thing, but television is a lot of fiction. Even the television realist television shows like Cops, they don't present the day-to-day what we do. And small town policing is drastically different from large city policing. The way we do our job, what we do is the same, but how we perform it is different. And what I'm trying to say to you is this, is that in small towns we have a greater level of service that probably you're going to see in a larger city, simply because we interact with the same group of people. We have 5,000 people in this town. If you go to a larger city of 300,000, 400,000 people, the interactions between police officers aren't as personal. So we try to give us a little bit better personal service to the community than what you probably would see in many larger cities other than through their community policing incentives. So what I want to do is I have a PowerPoint presentation that I want to go over with you, and just basically this is what we do. This is Selinsgrove Police Department, this is the community, the type of service we provide to the community at large. You have to bear with me here too, because I don't know how to operate a lot of the equipment. Our responsibilities that we have in the community are basically this. The Selinsgrove encompasses approximately 1.83 square miles of residential and commercial properties. The 2010 census indicated that there was 5,634 individuals, but we have a transient population besides that. Now in that residential community, they factored in, I believe, Sherry, and you can probably confirm this or not, the majority of the college students. Yes. Is that correct? That's correct. There's still transient students involved in that. So we have approximately 2,700 public school employees, or public school students, of which some reside in the borough, many reside around the borough. We have 388 school district employees, 2,261 university students, and the majority of them are factored into the base population. We have approximately 650 university staff and an estimate of about 600 transient business employees in the borough during a daytime, nighttime, whatever. So the base population of the borough, because of this, we can probably say at any one time, we're at the most maximum during the course of the day, we probably have over 10,000 people within the borough at any one time. That fluctuates. 3 o'clock in the morning is not the way it's going to be. 12 noon on a school week during the school year, that probably is the way it's going to be. We have approximately 1,600 households within the community. This all comes off the basic census information. 14.1% of our population is listed as under the age of 14, 14 over the age of 65. That pretty well evens out. And we have 161 firms, critical infrastructure. This is where it gets into the crux of how we do our job. Critical infrastructure basically means that these are the most highest priorities that we have, okay, as far as public safety goes, beyond the individual safety of any individual household. We have the Selinsgrove School District, which the entire campus is within the borough of Selinsgrove, and Susquehanna University, the campus, the entirety of the campus was in Selinsgrove, though they do have properties that are on the township surrounding us. Serious crimes for 2015, basically in a bar or a line graph, you can see that the majority of the crimes that we have reported to us during the course of a year, you can see the assaults are high, as well as the number of thefts occurring during a course of a year are high. I've looked at crime statistics since 1978. And since 1978, this basically has been the same type of graph that's shown.
Excuse us.
Sure. The federal government classifies crimes as serious crimes, and they classify everything else as all other. Okay, Part 1 and Part 2 crimes. All other crimes, everything from forgery to disorderly conduct, drug violations, alcohol violations. The federal government deems these less serious than these Part 1 crimes, serious crimes. A lot of the victims that I talk to have a different opinion of that. But you can basically see again that the majority of the crimes that we deal with are disorderly conduct crimes and all other offenses. We have vandalism just like any community does. We have drug violations like every community does. I've seen a rise over the years in the drug violations. I've seen a decrease in the alcohol violations over the last 2 years. There's reasons for both. Drugs are very common in communities anymore, and the number of violations are increasing everywhere. The alcohol violations that we're seeing, both in the underage drinking and public intoxication, you see there's only a combination of 44 offenses there. 3 years ago, there probably would have been 150. Susquehanna University moved everybody back on campus 2 years ago, and since they have moved back on campus, we are not getting those reports coming from campus. So that's an artificial artifact of statistics that you see. I'm not saying if we had 150 beforehand, that doesn't mean suddenly there's a decrease in alcohol problems or use within the borough. It just means that it's not getting reported to us now. Serious crimes reported in comparison of 2014 to 2015. You can see that in 2015 we definitely had more. There's no two ways on it. But in the next slide here, or one of the slides following, you'll find out that the percentage of increase was only between 10 and 18%. That's not a drastic rise in crime, but it is an increase in crime. Why? I think that's probably the obvious question, is why even aren't we seeing an increase? Well, in 2014 and 2013, we only had 4 full-time police officers and myself. 2015, we started increasing the number of police officers. The more police officers available, the more crimes are going to get reported to us and not to the state police. They're reported to the state police, they're not shown on our crime statistics. Our coverage rates, which I'll get into in a few minutes here too, has changed from 2014 to 2016. So I expect in 2016 that we're going to see again, an increase. Simply because we're here. We're here more hours, we're here more days, more crimes are going to be reported to us, less crimes are going to be diverted to the state police, which show on the county, but don't show on the borough. All other crimes, again, you see an increase. 2015, we actually were in the process of hiring our 5th officer. We lost an officer. We didn't come up to full complement. We only had our full complement for about a month. So, one of our officers separated and went to the Reading Police Department. But again, there was more people working in 2015. Just as showing the differences between serious and all other crimes, it's obvious that all other crimes, the less serious crimes, are the majority of the crimes that are committed within the borough. Again, you can see the difference. It was 18.8% increase in serious crimes from 2014 to 15, and only a 10.6% in all other crimes. Again, why don't we see that same amount? 10% instead of 18. Why don't we see 18% for other crimes? Again, the issue of the alcohol violations. We saw the decrease, a dramatic decrease in alcohol violations and disorderly conduct, to be quite frank, once students move back to campus. They don't call us, it's their problem. Okay, if we don't know it exists and the wrong reports are given to us, therefore we don't have them in statistics. I think that's an artifact of the system that the university has right now, not a pure reflection of the level of offenses taking place within the borough. And just to give you an idea, we have zones in the borough where if we were on the island, as I just told Jim here, for 2 incidents. And those are a specific zone within the borough because it has a geographical boundary, the creek. We also break off the school districts so we can account and see how many offenses are taking place in the school districts as well as the college campus itself. Again, the majority of the reports that we are receiving, which are calls for service, are occurring in the main portion of the borough. That's everything but the island, the bypass, the school district, and the college campus. Manpower, the current strength of the police department, the chief of police, I do administrative, investigative, and patrol duty. We have now 5 full-time police officers, 2 of which are probationary. I have 1 officer coming on probation at the end of the month, and I have another one that just started here last month. We have 1 part-time officer currently employed, and we have a civilian records clerk. Now, I've been here a long time. I wasn't here in '87, I was in another department. However, I was here in 1977 to 1979. I'm using 1987's figures here simply because I can't find any of the records from 1978 or 79. 1978, the department was staffed again with a chief, 5 full-time officers. They had reserve officers back then, which were, I think they were armed at that time. I think at one point when I was here, they weren't, but when I think I left, I think they became armed at some point. And civilian records clerk, they had part-time in throughout this, but I don't have figures on exactly whether they had it in 1987. The reason why it shows 1987 is that's the last uniform crime reports that I have in the department as a physical copy. They're not online for that age. But I wanted to show basically the difference that we have since 1987 to 2016. In 1987, there was 152 serious crimes reported. And that's murder, rape, robbery, assault, burglary, and theft of motor vehicle and arson. In 2015, the last year that we have full records for, we had 233. All other crimes, there was 307 in 1987 and 449 in last year. Total crimes, 459 in 1987 and 692 occurring in the last year. Again, society's changed, communities change, crime definitely has gone up, it's going down. In that time frame of about 25, 28, whatever years it is, it has definitely shown an increase over the course of time. Getting back on Manpower, okay, Susquehanna University employs a public safety department. They are unarmed and they serve as a civilian security force. There was a time there was cooperation where they would come and assist the borough on calls. That unfortunately is no longer the case. Selinsgrove School District employs no public safety or security officers. And regionally, when we need help, we generally get it from local municipal police departments. Shamokin Dam actually now has 3 officers. This was an old line. Middleburg has 2 officers, and the state police barracks at Selinsgrove have variable assets, anywhere between 17 and 27 troopers at any one time, depending upon their staffing issues. The mission of our police department is very simple. Okay, it's to protect persons and property in the community we serve. We don't have it on our doors like the LAPD do. Okay, but that's our mission. It's a basic mission of all law enforcement agencies within the United States. How we perform that task and what can be done is determined by our manpower, our technical capacity, basically, which comes down to training and equipment, and of course funding. Okay, our priorities are: we provide police response to crimes in progress, we protect high-risk infrastructure, and that high-risk infrastructure, of course, would have to be our school district for our children, and also the college community, which is the other high risk. We provide basic police services. And these are: we answer calls from citizens requesting assistance or reporting crimes, or asking for our assistance in other type of matters. We move to preserve the public peace. We provide patrol and inspectional services. Inspectional services, if somebody goes on a vacation, we do building checks for their vacation properties. Commercial properties, we commonly, during the night shift, we will inspect 1 to 3 businesses a night, depending upon how busy we are, to make sure that they're secure and also act as a deterrent for burglary. We provide basic traffic law enforcement and accident investigation, and we provide basic police investigatory services. Now, basic police investigatory services means basically in a small town, you report a crime to us, we investigate the crime. That's the simple of it. Those crimes can be anything from murder, or they can be to the most to plant thefts downtown. Other services are provided, including our local priorities and ancillary duty. Now, basically, all I'm saying there is that we do parking enforcement, we do overtime parking enforcement, we do sweep ordinance enforcement, we do code enforcement for the borough. We have other duties that are basically in addition to our primary law enforcement duties. What we can do has limiting factors. Okay, the first of which is simple: manpower. I think I've already gotten that into you. Is that when we were short and didn't have many police officers and we were under strength, our number of calls of service were down. Again, if somebody's not there to take the call, then the state police take it, or it's not answered. If a crime is reported and we're not working, then the state police take it. Okay, and if they take it, then it calls under the county. It doesn't fall under our crime statistics. In 2015, the department handled 2,784 calls for service or other police activity. Most of these are generated calls either by the 911 system that are handled or received on station and dispatched from the station, or the officer initiates those calls, what they see on the street. That amounts to approximately 556 calls per officer handled during the course of a year. There was 233 serious crime reports and 449 all other crime reports for 682 total. And that amounts to 136.4 crime reports per officer. There are 737 other enforcement acts that were made. We arrested somebody, we arrested multiple suspects. We issued parking tickets, we issued citations for speeding, we issued citations as a result of accident investigations. And again, that amounts to about approximately 147 per officer per year. The total activity for everything added together was 3,521 services rendered, or 706 services that each officer on an average handled during the course of a year. Factoring in leave, holidays, and 10 work days per pay period, this amounts to approximately 3.3 activities per day by each officer. So it's not the fact that police officers are sitting in the office 24 hours or 8 hours during their shift, or 9 or 10-hour shifts. It's not a factor that the officers are not busy. On a midnight shift, an officer may handle only one call for service or one police activity, but in a day shift like today, we handled approximately 9, I believe, incidents this day, just on an 8-hour shift. It can vary, but it averages out to approximately 3.3 activities per shift per year per officer. The other problems that we have when we talk about manpower allocation is that we have other limiting factors, including court hearings. We have mandatory training the state requires us to do. We have in-service training that we do in addition to the mandatory. And once you get into an intensive and extensive criminal investigation, that takes you away from doing other things. You have to remember that basically we're a one-man police department. Again, I told you before that we're a little bit different than in a large city. Large city can staff. Pete, how many guys did you guys staff on a watch in Washington, D.C.?
Well, almost 5,000 at one point.
Okay. We staff, on a watch. Okay, we're lucky if we have 2 people on a watch. We have some innovative ways we schedule to try to put people out at times when there is more activity, and that's how we try to schedule. But any time during the course of the day, chances are there's only a single officer out in the borough of Selinsgrove. Investigations of crime take us off the street. It takes us away from doing other duties. Rural police characteristically have small numbers of police officers and mandates that we have to do everything. I was a detective in Sunbury, so I did everything. I did criminal investigation full time. At one time there was 3 of us that were doing investigations in Sunbury. Here, a patrolman takes a case. He has to do the crime scene investigation. He has to do the witness interviews. He has to write his initial report, and then he has to do the subsequent interviews and subsequent investigation. In serious cases, then we combine efforts. If something comes in, we just had an incident with a weapon theft. And the officer who initially took that case initially did his work and did everything and worked at 2 hours overtime, in fact, before he got out. Information didn't come in until 5 hours later, leading to the identification of one of the individuals involved. So that's handled then, that we work cooperatively together. If that happens, then that officer runs with it and tries to do the best he can. But definitely, rural policing is far different than what urban policing is. Limited times available during watches due to other duties becoming priorities. And again, investigations is a prime example of that. So if we have duties that we normally would perform, let's say a sweeper duty on the evening, and we're to do a Tuesday morning sweeper route. If that officer gets a DUI during the course of that evening, and then combine that with a domestic assault where he has to take somebody into custody, chances are that officer's not going to get that one duty done. So there's no one generally else out to cooperate and perform those duties with a single man operation. Officers rotate shifts, causing difficulty in follow-on investigations, like I said to you before. If an officer took a report today and he comes off this shift on Thursday, if you call and that officer isn't available, he's on the midnight shift now, then he's not going to call you at 12 o'clock at night. He's not going to call you at 3 o'clock in the morning. He's going to have to wait until he comes back on the shift when he can call you at a reasonable hour to do the follow-up on that. If it's serious, then we hand that off to another officer who's working a shift that can work that for you. But there's reasons why officers don't get back to people immediately. Cases are also prioritized by solvability. Solvability is a nice little mathematical formula that we use that's based upon what evidence we have at the time the report is taken. High solvability cases are cases where we have physical evidence, where we have witnesses who observe the perpetrator. They are incidents where we have leads to follow. Low solvability cases are use you, Carol, as an example. Okay, somebody steals your flag. Okay, it's generally done 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and no one's going to be talking at that time in the morning. Those cases have characteristically low solvability factors. So we have to prioritize what we can solve and which ones we have the highest percentage to solve. That doesn't mean that if Carol would call up and say, somebody walk into a dormitory at Susquehanna University with my flag, would you follow that? Yeah. And it jumps that up to a higher priority, and then we'll take that immediately. I'm going to give you an example on one of the cases that we had here within the last couple of years. We had a young 4-month-old baby that was taken to the hospital and was in critical condition and nearly died. The baby was beaten, not beaten, but it was subjected to physical force by a caregiver. In that incident itself, the initial response of the investigation amounted to over 31 hours of 3 police officers. That was just the initial investigation. Subsequent investigation over 2 months amounted to an additional 143 hours of investigative effort. During the course, we did 47 interviews. There was travels to the hospital, travel to crime laboratories. There was travel to locate witnesses and interview witnesses. We had court appearances in this case for 32 hours and a total of 206 hours, or approximately 25 8-hour days. So we spent working just one single case. I've had cases that have taken far more. In fact, I have one ongoing right now that is taking, going to be higher than that. One-man police departments. You know, we depend upon other municipal police departments within Snyder County and outside and adjoining to Snyder County to assist us. That's the only way this job works in small communities. So we primarily request assistance from adjoining police departments, which Shamokin Dam would be one and Middleburg would be the other. Additional assistance comes from the Pennsylvania State Police. They have far more manpower than we do, but they have their priorities. The Selinsgrove barracks of the Pennsylvania State Police handle the entire county, so they have a very large patrol area involved. Go ahead.
Chief, this is a question that's been on my mind. We watch television with horror when we see Columbine and Virginia Tech, and here we are, a small force. What do we do if there's a crisis, a active shooter in one of these situations here?
Give me a few more slides.
Oh,
That's
okay.
one of the things we're going to discuss. Okay. Selinsgrove State Police have their own duties to do too. That doesn't mean they don't send personnel into us. The problem that we run into, and you'll see that in a second here, is that if they only have 3 guys on, one's in court, one is at another barracks transmitting documentation, and the other guy's in McClure, that's a long distance away, and it's a lot of minutes. Yeah, but I'll get into that and show that to you. We have limited assistance from the Office of Attorney General, the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, and the Bureau of Narcotics Investigation. FBI gives us assistance when we request it, as well as the associated federal agencies. We've dealt with the ATF, IRS, CID, ICE. I just dealt with them today on an incident. So we get good assistance from people, but again, they're not here. In an emergency, such as an active shooter in the school, limited assistance is reasonably expected from outside agencies. That's just the fact of life. We're not alone at that, okay? Most police departments in the United States realize that what you've got available to you and what's closely in proximity and time to get to you is what you're going to have to deal with in these situations. Most active shooter incidents are over in 4.5 to 12 minutes. Newtown, Connecticut, at the Sandy Hook Elementary School lasted approximately 10 minutes from when the guy went in the door, okay, to the last shot was fired. That's the response time for Newtown, okay? That's what happened there. 9:30, they believe they had him on video going in the front door. 9:35, the first call is received. Newtown Police Department, I know one of their officers, a very good man, and he was not involved in this incident, but their people did a wonderful job. In 4 minutes, they had the first officer on the scene. That's a good response time. Unfortunately, the last shot was heard 1 minute after the officer arrived on the scene. Officer arrives on scene, that's him calling, I'm on scene, he's getting out of his car. He's probably grabbing the equipment that he needs to survive these type of incidents. So by the time he got to the door, it was over with. So this is not good news for police chiefs.
Question. With the college, you're saying that their security over there, they're unarmed.
Yes, ma'am.
So if they would have a crisis over at the college, what would take place?
Well, hopefully they would call us. They would call 911. 911 would immediately dispatch us. They would immediately dispatch not only us, but it's basically like the fire services does. It's an on-call. Certain protocols are that, for an instance such as that, better call everybody. The first call goes out to all the county municipal units. At the same time, another dispatcher is on the phone with the state police giving them the information. So then all the Snyder County law enforcement agencies at the same time are getting the information, or within close time proximity within a minute or two.
Would they make an announcement over the campus like they do, like if there was a tornado?
I believe that's their system, but I'm not confident with the fact. I believe they do have that capability, and I believe that is their issue.
Because I have heard announcements made, like take cover now, and
yeah, I think
when
weather events,
was
I've heard a
that
couple
time
of
they
those.
predicted a tornado.
I think currently the university is undergoing their review of their emergency action protocols. So I think that's an issue that's being addressed, but I think it probably already has been, to be quite frank with you. I'm just not familiar with it.
Okay.
Right, so if such an incident happened here, okay, assistance from outside injuries or agencies is hindered by available manpower for these agencies. Same way we would be. If I have a single officer working and he's at the magistrate's office, okay, he's at a hearing, then they've got to get that call to the magistrate's office because we don't have our radios on. And that means the secretary is going to be coming in and interrupting the hearing, okay, and the officer leaves. But the same token, we may have an officer at court. Now, generally, we do court not on duty time, but on overtime. That avoids the majority of those problems, but there are occasions where that can't be arranged. If the state troopers, again, or if we have state troopers in court, in this county or another county, that limits the available manpower for them. The same way with Schmoke and Danville Police Department. If they are on other duties, and they may not be available immediately to respond to an incident within the borough. The second problem we have is the distances. Yes, ma'am.
A few years ago, didn't the university and the police department, or didn't they have some kind of police protection going on, or was there a union?
Well, there's still police protection going on, ma'am. Okay, but they're not law enforcement officers. Okay, they're public safety officers. Basically, what they are is security officers. They perform physical security at the campus, but they're unarmed. They're not Act 235 certified, or they used to be at one time, but they do not carry weapons anymore. So that's
I mean, did they at one time?
at one time, yes, ma'am. Back in the 70s, early 80s, yes, ma'am. They did. That far.
But wasn't there more communication between the
Surely.
college and the police?
Yes.
Not that long ago, when I still attended.
Not that long ago, yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Things change sometimes, and we're trying to repair them.
I see.
Okay,
Thank you.
surely. The second problem we have is that it's not only who's available, but how far away they are. Anybody that's driven up and down 11 and 15 lately, I think can understand that if something happens at the Selinsgrove School District at 12:15 in the afternoon, officers coming from Northumberland or Sunbury are going to have a considerable effort to get down that strip in a rapid means. So distance and speed and time are simple computations, but the unfortunate problem of that is that we have to realize that our assistance coming from far away is going to take a while to get there. The barracks is 2.97 miles away at 70 miles an hour with traffic. That's probably a good 3.5 minutes to get to the school, if we're lucky. If they're in Freeburg, it goes to greater than 6 minutes. And this is straight line computation by roadway miles. Kramer, it'd be a little bit more, almost 7 minutes. Port Trevorton, more than 7 minutes. If they're in Beavertown, it can be up as much as 25 minutes. McClure, then we're up to 30 minutes. Okay, and that's red lights and sirens, 70 miles an hour, but expecting traffic to be interfering with that officer trying to get here. Again, just basically, if you start looking at the other barracks involved, Stonington Barracks, we're the minimum to get here. And I think that's a really, I was being very optimistic about 15 minutes, minimum 27 minutes. So, you know, if you start looking at the time, departments we would expect to assist us in major incidents, we're talking about considerable amounts of time. If you go back to what I said about most active shooter incidents are done within 4.5 to 10 minutes, it doesn't look good, okay, for assistance coming to our department. From the time the incident happens to 2.5 minutes, and this is dispatch time, so this is the time frame of the event is the time that the first dispatch comes out. For the person to get in and to call the police department on 911, for the dispatcher to receive that information accurately, and then to accurately radio that information, we're adding another 2 to 3 minutes on that. Despite the fact that somebody may not be able to get to a phone to call us right away. So these are very optimistic time frames. So the minimum number of officers I would expect to be at an incident like this within 2.5 minutes, maybe 1, maybe 2 officers. And that's if we have 1 or 2 officers working in the borough. As we start going up, we start increasing it. We might have a trooper in the borough. That's why the state police augments. We might have a trooper that's actually within the borough all the time. When we get up to 10 minutes, I'm being very optimistic by saying that we might have 8 to 10 officers on scene, but maybe not ready to deploy. You have to understand also that it's been a paradigm shift in the way we do our work. I've instructed SWAT teams. I've been part of 3 different special weapons teams in my career. There was a time when we were taught and we instructed that we established a perimeter, we established an outer perimeter, we marshaled our assault team together, and then we formulated a plan and enacted it. That all takes time, and that's not done within 10 minutes. After Columbine in the 1990s, everyone realized that you can't have armed and trained tactical officers on the perimeter waiting for the operations plan to deploy. So the paradigm shift was that we would then immediately take action. Within, as soon as officers got there, we would marshal 2, 3, 4 officers, then enter as a team. It's been a paradigm shift now since then too, that basically even that takes more time than we have available. So now basically what we're teaching people is that if you're there, we enter right away.
Are you responsible for the mall also, or do you know if the patrol that they have at the mall, do they carry?
No, they don't carry. They're unarmed security, but we've trained with
unarmed security.
Yes, ma'am. But we've trained with them all. We've actually did one of our tactical trainings at the mall recently, last January, and we did tactical training for such an event at the mall. So they've been very proactive.
Have you done it down at the university?
Yes, we've done one at the university too.
Chief,
Yes.
who takes over in a catastrophic situation like that at the school district, the mall, the university? Who takes charge when all these other entities are coming in to the scene?
Well, let's use your mall example. Okay, if they would call that there was an active shooter at the mall and we get there first, we take charge. Because we're there. The transition would take place as soon as the supervisor for the state police or a state trooper would get there, then we would give authority to the state trooper, okay, at the earliest convenient time, which means as soon as possible, without jeopardizing the life of individuals involved. If it occurs here, any jurisdiction, if Middleburg would call us for an incident at their high school, Middleburg would charge that incident. We act under their authority. We act under their command. So it would be their chief of police that would be issuing me orders of what he wants me to do. And that's the way, it's uniform, it's basically instant command. The fire department has been using instant command procedures for years. We do the same thing. If we interact with fire departments or emergency medical services, then we go under unified command. The instant commander would be, if it's for a fire, then it would be, I would take orders from the fire chief. If it's a criminal act, then I would give orders to the fire chief. But that's the way we work, and that's how we train to work. Most departments within this area are very well trained in that. This department is very, very well trained in that.
When would SWAT be called in?
As soon as we can. But the problem again is this: the SWAT team that we had working from municipal departments in which we participated no longer is in function. It no longer exists. It disbanded approximately 3 years ago. So our closest SWAT team right now, I believe, Ms. Moore would probably tell us from their daily item article that I read here some weeks ago, was from Columbia Montour. The next closest would be Lycoming. The next closest would be State College, or the Pennsylvania State Police. Of course, they have 2 SWAT teams in various portions of the
Would you have any idea how long it would take them to get here if it was?
I know we called when I was a Sunbury officer, when they disbanded our SWAT team in Sunbury. We called the state police SWAT team and they were 45 minutes out. So that's again the reason why we train that we have to handle the situation immediately, okay, and this is how we work. The impact of an active shooter incident in the borough would be affected by a local officer acting in concert with 1 or 2 additional officers or alone. That's the basis of what we have to realize. And that's the way most police departments are training at the current time. Our staffing priorities: in 2015 we staffed 7 days a week, 3 shifts on 6 days, including Sunday day shift, and then 2 shifts on the Sunday. We generally had 2 shifts, day watch from 7 o'clock to 3 p.m. and the PM watch from 3 o'clock to 11 p.m. Then we also had a mid-watch at 8 o'clock at night to 4 in the morning. That provided extra coverage during the high volume time that we see calls for services needed. In 2016, in fact just Sunday, we started, give me a second here, we'll get through this one, I'll get back to you. In 2016, we changed our shifts to 10-hour shifts on Sunday. So now we will be staffing 7 days a week. We have 3 primary shifts: day shift from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., PM from 5 p.m. to 2 a.m., and morning watch from 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. Again, we get about 5 hours of coverage during that high volume time and the high risk time that we have for law enforcement duty. I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm a little confused, because I live so close to the university, and there's something, like on my kitchen window or bedroom window, I can see quite a bit what goes on. If I see something happening, who do I call? The university or the police?
Well, that's an issue. You have to decide who you want to call. If you call us, we answer the call. If you call the university, then the university public safety officers will handle the call.
But there's such a difference between you and the university.
That's why you have to decide how you want to handle that.
When did this happen, sir?
It's always been that way in one way or another. Public safety has always handled incidents on campus, at least initially.
Oh, because it's so concentrated now.
Sure.
Students
And plus they have their own administrative programs out there to handle minor issues among students. And that's fine. I think that's an admirable system. They have to decide, though, when they want police involvement. That's just simply the fact of it. It always was that way.
Are you happy with that arrangement, Chief?
It's the way it is. I don't pick the
You
way I do my job.
can't make an opinion on that. Do you find it
It's difficult.
easier to do your job for the borough, being that you don't have that hanging over your head, worrying about what's going on at the college?
Well, I'll answer it this way. When we had a large number of students living off campus, our incident rate was extremely high involving off-campus students. There's no 2 ways on that. The problem is that the campus now has moved, or the students have moved back on campus, which is now causing an inordinate amount of problems for their public safety personnel. That problem didn't go away. It didn't magically cure itself, and those issues, okay, didn't go into hiding. They just moved to another location. The problem that we have is that this is not a closed environment. The college community and the general community at large in Selinsgrove are the same community. Students transit from campus to the borough for various purposes. They use restaurants, they go to the bar rooms, they go to the stores, okay? They get gas here. So those problems didn't go away. They just got centralized in the university. And they are being handled by the university rather than being handled by the police department. That's a decision the college has made. I can't comment on that because if it was the school district doing the same thing, then that would be their issue. They have to make the balance between the safety of their community and how they handle things. Are we handling things to assure the safety of our community? If they're making that decision, I'm not going to comment.
Okay, so those statistics then that you gave us of the increase in crime that's been going on from 2015 to 2016, that's just involving ordinary citizens in the borough, that is not including the students?
I don't have it broken down to student issues, but I would have to say that primarily, okay, the majority of those are just involving individuals within the community. I don't have statistics available for you. I apologize for that, because that's a good question.
Well,
But for 2013 or 2000,
wouldn't you want to know that though,
yes,
for your own?
sure. What happens on campus can happen in the community. If someone goes on campus and commits a crime, chances are they may commit a crime in the borough too. If you have a burglary, okay, in the university, that same individual might commit a burglary in the borough. There's no gates, there's no walls. Okay, we interact between the communities. So yes, I would like to know, but I can't. That's not a decision that I can make. That's a decision the university has to make.
Oh, I see.
Yes, ma'am.
The police department is under the borough council?
The police department operates under the authority of the borough
And
government.
does the borough council make any, like does the university have to come to the borough council with their decisions?
They're private property, ma'am. I don't believe they're accountable to the borough.
With such a number?
So they don't go to borough meetings anymore? The school is not involved at the borough meetings
I
anymore?
don't know.
One of their vice presidents
Sure.
attends most of the meetings.
Sure. Okay.
And why is there distancing? Am I talking to somebody in the borough?
I didn't hear that.
What happened that there's this distancing like that? That's a big community over there, and I'm very close to it. Did something happen that?
I don't understand the question.
I believe she's asking the question is, why is it that now that the college students are back on campus, aren't we seeing a similar rate of incidents for crimes that we did prior to that happening? And again, all I can tell...
My question,
I understand you're trying to ask the question of why it happened, and I can't answer that, and I don't believe the council members can answer that either. The decision that
the council is...
The council is not the governing body of Susquehanna University.
The Susquehanna University is in Selinsgrove.
They are a private entity, okay? They are a private, just like a business is. How they run that business, okay? If it's the water company, the water place down on South High Street, I apologize. LB Water. How LB Water runs his business is up to the administrative staff of LB Water. They have to abide by regulations, and I can assure you that the university is abiding by regulations. But how they do that is a private business decision. It has nothing to do with the local government. So if they want to handle these type of incidents out there, and we don't have a student coming to us saying, I've been victimized, there is no police report. There's nothing we can do.
So there's no liaison
There's no liaison?
between the university and the borough council, if that's the governing body?
Again, I don't believe there would be because they are a private institution.
Well, at one
There
time,
was,
we used to
there
be
was.
able to come to a borough and express our opinion about the difficulties we were having with the college. And they handled it beautiful because things were done. Things were corrected. Now, we're finding out now we're in a whole new situation that if I was to have any more problems where I live, which is
Yeah.
near the school,
Yes.
then I don't go to you anymore. I have to deal with the school privately myself.
Now, you can come to us anytime, I just made that very clear. You can report anything to us. If there is a issue where your property is being damaged by college students, then you report it to the police department, and we'll handle that problem for you. Okay? We are still the law enforcement agency for the community, and we will continue to operate in that way.
Okay.
The options for you are either to report it to us or report it to the university. That's a decision you have to make. I can't make that for you. Okay? I can't make you report a crime. No one can. You have to make that decision yourself. Okay?
Okay, thank you,
Okay,
Chief.
surely. The changes that we've done by going to 10-hour shifts basically now is the fact that we are covering 24 hours, 7 days a week, except for a 5-hour period on one day. So our staffing, once we've increased our staffing, our coverage now has gone up dramatically.
And Chief,
Yes?
that 5 hours that you're not covering,
Mhm.
was that decision made based on
On
historical?
statistics.
Okay, great.
It's made statistically on which is the best day that I can afford to have a 5-hour gap.
Okay.
Again, you have to realize, I have 5 patrolmen. I can only work them 40 hours a week, 80 hours a pay period. If you do the math on this, you'll kind of come up with the realization that doing 24-hour coverage is extremely difficult. Add into that fact that each officer has a certain amount of holidays they get per year. They have a certain amount of vacation time. We have mandatory training time. We have court time. If they have to go to court, I want them to go on non-duty time. But sometimes that happens and we have to send them on duty. Or send them out on overtime or on a regular duty day. These things detract the available hours that we have for an individual during the course of a year. An average police officer works approximately 1,080 hours a year. Okay? And to staff, I don't have the formula in front of me, but I guarantee you it's difficult. I'm with 5 patrolmen rotating shifts, even without rotating shifts. To get 24-hour coverage is a near impossibility. There's always going to be a gap. Add into the fact that, again, that we have time that those officers aren't going to be there, and that detracts available days then too. We're left with the option of either not staffing, or I staff, or we have a part-time officer, which we do have a good part-time officer right now, but it's availability of him working other jobs, or we pay overtime. So that's the limiting factor of what we have to do. In adapting our priorities, the military uses a term called force multipliers. And basically what that is what can we do to do our job better, more efficiently, without adding additional manpower. You can see in our discussion that I've given you before about our priorities that we have certain priorities, and the primary is protection of person and property. 2011, Selinsgrove Police, our police department has probably we have very, very good tactical training. You'll see this coming up, but I'm going to just say it now, is that all my police officers are SWAT trained, Special Weapons and Tactics trained. The exception being my 2 probationary officers, and both of them will be going to schools, one this year and one next year. The reason being is that issue that if you have an officer going to an active shooter or another serious incident, then that officer has to go in with the best training possible, the best equipment possible, and handle that issue probably alone. So they're going to have the best training involved. That's a force multiplier.
That puts me a little bit more at ease.
Again, our tactical training is very good. Again, we do more probably tactical training than most departments in the area. We use force-on-force training. We have the equipment through a federal grant where we can use simunitions, which are not bullets, but they're paint rounds, but fired out of our regular our regular duty weapons and our duty rifles. So we do force-on-force training, bad guy, good guy training, and that's the best training in the world for these types of situations. All my people are SWAT certified with the exception of my probationary officer will be. We do live fire training twice a year at the range, and we're already required to do so once. We also do simunition training, and we do training as a team. We do training, the last training we did was at the mall, which I explained to you before. That was an active shooter training we did as a live exercise at the Selinsgrove Valley Mall. We have another one that we're going to be doing later on this year then too. In addition to, we do computer-based training, which is over and above what we were mandated to by the state. We also started training, and Vince, I'll refer to you in this, but we have a law enforcement version of combat lifesaver, which basically is immediate aid to not only ourselves in case we're shot or to another police officer shot, but also to civilians. We carry medical equipment within our cars so that we can, if we get hurt or somebody else gets hurt, we can actually do something immediately. Because it takes a while to get medics into the scenes if the scenes are still fluid scenes. So this is something that we initiated here in 2012, I believe, and we've continued that. We have another training coming up in January or July on that. We provide the greatest amounts of service to the community based on staffing and funding. Everything comes down to that. Okay, any community you're dealing with, I don't care where you are. Okay, it comes down to the fact that we have to do the best with what we have, whether that's New York City or whether that's Selinsgrove. We emphasize training and professional service to the community we serve. We do the best we can. Okay, but we're a small department, and that's basically what I want to tell people is that this is not New York City. This is not a precinct in New York City where we have 300 guys on a shift. This is a small community. Our goal is not only to hold the line on crime, but positively impact it by decreasing the incident of crimes. I have an emphasis for my officers that we investigate crime. I was a detective and I was also a crime scene investigator. So I want physical evidence being a basis for crime prosecution at the highest level. That way we don't have to worry about witness testimony or verbal testimony of individuals, which changes in time. Physical evidence is there, and once it's there and analyzed, it's there for good.
Chief, can I ask another question? If there's some agency that wants to come in and hold some kind of, let's just say a rally, we're seeing all this violence going on with these Trump rallies right now, do you have the authority to say, we can't have it here because we don't have the physical ability to keep people safe?
I think, you know, if it comes down to a person, let's say a protest, a person who wants to protest, they have a constitutional right to do so lawfully. Okay. So if we're notified of a protest, and we get those on occasion that there are protests, we examine the risk that are involved by the group wanting to protest. Everything that we have ever been notified of has been extremely low risk. And we provide the minimum amount of coverage to that so as not to impede those people's right to protest or exercise their constitutional rights, and yet have some assurances of safety, not only to the community, but also to those individuals. So we haven't had that problem. I can't answer you, tell you if something more serious would happen, but it hasn't happened. Small community, chances are it's not going to happen. That's the low on my risk assessment that I worry.
Okay.
Realizing the dynamic nature of crime, Selinsgrove Police have demonstrated the ability to adapt to changes and overcome obstacles. And I'm sorry, that's a text statement, but I'll be quite frank with you, that's probably the best thing I can say for my men. We have, on numerous occasions, handled very serious issues, and I believe my people have done exemplary. I have good people, I have qualified officers, I'm proud of my men. The community ought to be proud of them too. I believe they've done an excellent job. But what we ask for, and I'm sorry to go through all this, but I wanted to basically tell you what we do. A lot of people don't understand it. Okay, a lot of people don't want to understand it, so I appreciate the people being here today. But we can do it better, okay? We make mistakes every day. And the first thing I say walking into talk to my officers on any one day is that I expect you to make mistakes because I make them every day. There's things I don't get done, there's things I should get done, there's things that I want to get done, okay? But there's limited time and limited abilities. What we try to do is the best we can, all right? We try to give you 100% and a little bit more. And I can honestly say in the 22 years I've been here that my officers have given you 101%. Now, the purpose of this, I'm sorry I got long-winded, I apologize, I took too much time doing this, but I wanted to give you a background of what we are. I would, my purpose of this meeting was to give you information and to open up lines of communication with the public. Without those lines of communications, we can't function. We need to talk to people, and they need to trust us that when they tell us something, we are going to do the best we can. So, I'm going to leave that with you at this point. That's all I would want to say. I'll be more than glad to answer whatever questions I can. Some questions I just can't give you the answers. Okay, sorry. Jimmy.
Tom, how can we help?
You know, we've talked, like Pete has talked at one time, I think it was you, Pete, the one about doing crime watch.
People had asked at the meeting
Sure.
about setting up a crime watch. You and I talked when I was mayor.
Yep.
So I'll let you go from there.
Crime watches have to be overseen to be effective. If they're not overseen and directed, they're difficult. Their functionality, the ability to function well decreases if they're not overseen and effectively managed. To effectively manage it means I have to give another task to a police officer or myself, and we have a lot on our plate, okay? Small-town policing, we are jacks of all trade, okay? We do everything. We do traffic enforcement, we do accident investigation, we do criminal investigations, we do parking enforcement. We do every function the police department does. In the larger cities, they have departments that do that. They have precincts that do that. They have shifts that do that. We don't do that. We have to do everything there is. And it's extremely difficult in small-town police. So, what you can do is this, is that make sure that if you see something wrong, then you got to tell us. You don't know how many times I have people coming up to me saying, geez, I wanted to call you when this happened, but I didn't want to bother you. That's what we're paid to be, we're paid to be bothered. That's our job. Call us and let us know. Okay, if something's not right. I had a complaint this afternoon from an individual because their daughter was afraid because somebody was doing something that she observed. There's no problem. We went up, okay, unfortunately we don't know who the person was, but I can guarantee you that we have a report of that. And if we have another report of that, I can link those together. I can see patterns. I can then possibly identify the individual involved and find out why. If we don't hear what's going on, we can't do anything for you. We get stolen property all the time, okay, that no one reports to us. Okay, it just gets turned in. Yes?
Video camera technologies come down the cost.
Yes.
That would help the police.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, sometimes that's all we have. I have an incident we're investigating right now, and the only thing we have is a video. And that's it. And unfortunately, the video is not good, but it's something. Okay. We just had the incident with the theft of a firearm down here on Market Street. Okay, he had video. Okay, one person now is in custody. We're looking for the other. The other one's on the run, but we have one person in custody. Without that, the solvability on that would have been very, very hard, because we'd have to go on a description instead of a photograph. That photograph, once that went out, we got phone calls. So, but that costs money. And again, it comes down to it. It's hard. You got so many dollars, they can only go so many ways. I can't answer about the university, but you can ask me something.
I have to say, Tom, I do struggle sometimes with whether to call or not on some of the incidences that happen since we're on the path.
I know, that's a difficult place to
And I
be.
struggle with that. And it's like, should I call or not? But I don't know if the department wants to know about
Yes,
these things.
we do.
You do want to know?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, emphatically yes. Okay, because what they did to your house, okay, they can do again. How many times did it happen to you that they stole your flag?
9 times.
Okay.
How many times did you
They
report?
just broke the fence too, which I have to say, the university came and repaired our fence.
But, that's fine.
And I appreciate that.
That's fine, but you know something, the issue comes down to this, is that we can repair damages, okay? But unless we stop them from occurring, okay, they're going to repeat, and someone's going to pay it again. I don't want, paying damages is putting a Band-Aid on a problem. Solving the problem is when you excise the wound, and that is by identifying the individual who's doing this and making them pay, okay, by being arrested. I'm sorry. That's what it comes down to. Because sometimes it just doesn't help itself. It continues. And you're a prime example of that. What happened to you? Yes, please.
Could we possibly, and this was brought up at the meeting we had up at the church, and you were there for that, the reporting in the newspaper, the daily item in other jurisdictions report their crime and what have you. And we did that prior to 2006, and we stopped. It's been talked about, and I think some of the people on the IQ that called me when there was some vandalism throughout the area, and then it moved up into our area, and that prompted this whole thing moving forward to get it out to the public and out to the residents of the borough to know the petty theft that goes on, be it the cars, possibly homes, flags. If it's in the newspaper, people can sort of say, hey, this happened in this 100 block of Orange Street or whatever. It gives the public something to bite into as well as possibly calling the station saying, hey, what's going on every week? You've gotten away from that. Is there anything that you feel that would be a benefit or a loss?
I'm not going to blame the daily item for this, but the daily item stopped printing them.
No, we don't print them, but they're all online. It's going digital, Chief. Everything is online.
So he could report it, but it goes online?
Yeah, all goes online.
Okay. Could we do that? Yes. That means I have to task somebody with that to call. I don't like seeing East Buffalo, and we used to do it too. We put a traffic stop at so-and-so time. That doesn't tell anybody anything other than police officers are busy. I hope you would believe we are. But as far as the crime issues involved, if that can be done and the community wants that, I'll task them. That's not an issue. I think I probably can do that under the reporting system we have right now and at least get something out, something that would be acceptable for you to print online, and yet something that's not going to be an issue for us spending more time. When we have to do press releases, and we do press releases for the simple fact that we want to make sure that the information we give out is accurate. I don't want to be misquoted saying something. I don't want to have something inadvertently said by an officer that turns out later on not to be true. I want that in writing, and I want it to be out in accurate fashion so that you have the accurate information and you're not scratching your head afterwards saying, why did they say this? So I want everything in writing. Can that, when we write a press release right now, it's a hard form that we generate, and it takes time writing a press release. There is possibly that we could do what we used to do, which is basically put a blotter out. But I want that. I want the stupid stuff out, the traffic stops, the parking enforcement, that we put a parking ticket on a car out and just put in crime. If that's what you want, I can arrange that. Sure. Would that help you?
Us, we take it.
Oh.
People love that stuff.
Yeah, good.
But is that something the community would you prefer having it? All right, then I'll work on that and try to get that initiated. Sure. Yes.
I have a question about a property down the island.
Okay.
I own 210, 212, 214 East Pine Street. The property next door, there's all kinds of activity going on. Pretty damn sure it's not Bible study. You guys seem to be there once a day, sometimes multiple times a day. Is there anything going on with that property?
I was there today.
Can it be deemed a nuisance property?
I think if you give me a couple days, the daily item will probably have something for you. Okay?
Excellent, that's what we're doing.
Mr. Charles talked to me about that today, and I just informed him I was there today with another officer, and I just got through 2 hours writing a report on that property. So you give us the right
numbers of cards that have stopped there.
You're talking about not only the Pine Street address, but the address to the rear area.
Blackberry Alley, so we
Yes.
see it.
Blackberry Alley?
We see it firsthand.
Did you see me there?
I had to work
That's
today.
That's important.
Let me see at the end, I'll take what you have, but again, what I can tell you is this, is that if you give me a couple of days so that I can get what work I have to be done, you'll probably be very busy.
That's awesome. Thank you very much.
Folks, Pete Carroll, I'm on council. A perfect example, Chief, and I appreciate you being here. How many times, both of you, I'm asking both of you, how many times have you been calling the police department to complain about amount of traffic coming and going?
I only called twice because I felt like calling every day was
Okay.
like.
And this is what the chief is trying to get across to you. I know it sounds like a nuisance, but it's not a nuisance. That's what we're paying our tax dollars for, is to keep a police department, $500,000 to keep the police department operating in our borough. And your support for our police department is to take the time to make those phone calls to help our community, because whatever spills in your community can be moved and be put in another place in our community. And until we keep that rolling and your information into us, we have late night traffic coming and going, this kind of stuff. That's what the chief is trying to get across to
My
us.
personal concern is that these kids are going to get put away for 6 months, 8 months, and they'll be right back and they'll retaliate and do things to our home.
And my concern is solving the problem, so that doesn't happen.
Right.
And that is a vicious circle that you're facing. Again, you're behind your closed doors, you're making a phone call. Could they relate to you as the person who's calling? But then you have other support right behind you. There's another gentleman seeing the same thing. So he could feel the same thing, but until we come to that point of saying, hey, which is better for my community and my children in this community? We want this community to keep going and thrive, and we want a police department that does their job, and they need our support. That's what the chief is telling us.
If you stay by, both of you stay back a little bit, and the daily item leaves, I'll explain the situation.
They want me, they don't.
The daily item has to wait for the press release. So.
Yeah. I have to wait for the press release. Remember what he said. A long time for the press
What is
release.
our town ordinance in regard to noise ordinance and speeding in vehicles with, loud mufflers and speeding and
Well, speeding
loud
is a
music?
state law. Speeding is a state law, and we enforce the state laws.
Okay.
Okay?
What about deaf men driving?
Definitely, Joe.
Now wait,
And what you have to do, our ordinance for disturbing the peace, okay, which is
that's considered as
is it disturbing the peace? It's
Yeah.
sort of the conduct also, but specifically in our disturbing the peace ordinance, there's
Okay.
prohibitions against excessively loud mufflers. They have to achieve certain criteria.
okay.
But if somebody's going, let's say they're parking along the river and they're blaring their music at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're disturbed, that's disturbing the peace and disorderly conduct. You call us, we come take care of it.
I can do that.
Yes.
Okay. Because I seem to have an issue with loud music in vehicles going by that are.
Well, we have to stop the vehicle.
You have to get them.
We have to get them, okay? And sometimes that's not easy, okay?
Okay.
But the thing is, if we don't know what's happening and you see the vehicle, you can describe it to me and tell me what time they're there at night.
Well,
I
if
can
it
hear
wakes
it.
me up and I'm in bed, that's pretty loud. Okay.
I
got it.
imagine it would.
All
But
right.
you got to call us and let us know,
I can do that.
and then we handle the problem.
All right.
All right, we
Because I
can
didn't
do
know if like at a certain, like at
No, there's no
11
time.
o'clock in the morning, it has to be.
If it's an industrial action or a business like a jackhammer going, then it's by time.
Okay.
Okay, but if
Other
it's
than
anything
that,
else, if you're being disturbed and you're telling me that you're disturbed, that's all. Anything else? All right, well, listen, I want to appreciate everybody for coming tonight. I hope this is a start, that at least we can try to get more people involved as time goes on. The comments that I heard tonight, I'm sorry I couldn't answer everything for you, but I appreciate you coming in. I appreciate you spending the time out of your evening to do this, and I hope that I can see you again the next time you're in. All right? Thank you very much.
Thank you.